Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am finally going to get to share with you my costume that I made for the Great Dickens Christmas Fair. So if you're not familiar with the Great Dickens Christmas Fair, it takes place every year in San Francisco at a venue called the Cow Palace. And it starts in the late part of November every year, and it goes to, I think, about the weekend before Christmas. So every year my family and I, we try to go, and this year we went the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So I was up in the Bay Area with my family for a week, and I've been working on finishing up this dress, so I haven't posted anything in about 2 weeks on YouTube, so that's why I haven't been around. But I'm so excited to share it with you. So, also a little bit more about the Dickens Fair. It is based on Charles Dickens' The Christmas Carol, which came out in 1843. So, the whole venue, called the Cow Palace in San Francisco, is transformed to basically be 19th century, well, the Victorian era in London. So, Victorian London, Victorian England, I guess. So the entire venue of the Cow Palace is transformed to be basically the streets of Victorian London. So you will have characters that are central to the story of the Christmas Carol, like the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. And then you have Father Christmas running around, and you also have Queen Victoria, her guardsmen, and her ladies in waiting, and all that stuff walking around. So from time to time you see these characters, and they are actors that are part of this whole thing. You do have, well, I'd say a good portion of people that attend this event do dress up, and then other people don't, and that's fine. They come in and they enjoy the ambiance, which is what it's all about, and it is just amazing because it's like you've gone back in time and you're walking the streets of London back in the mid-1800s, and it's just so charming. And so I did film some footage to share so you could kind of get an idea of what it's like to go. I didn't take a whole lot of footage. It's kind of hard when you're in costume and you're trying to enjoy the experience with your family. You don't want to constantly be on your phone or something filming things. So I do have a little bit to share with you, and you'll see a lot of people in costume. And it's acceptable to dress in, dresses from the Victorian era. And especially in the time of the Christmas Carol, you're going to see like a lot of hoop skirts. We're looking mainly at the mid-1800s. Now, it's perfectly fine for people to come in the later part of the 1800s, like with the bustle. As long as you're in that Victorian era, I think it's perfectly acceptable. It's just a lot of fun to see all the different costumes and what people wear. And again, if you don't go in costume, it's perfectly fine too, because you're enjoying it and it's just a lot of fun. They have, just lots of shops and little places you can get food and little shows, and they have like little dances, ballroom dancing, and I have some footage of that. I don't dance, and then they have like little chimney sweepers, people dressed as chimney sweepers, just a lot of characters that you would find in the Christmas Carol, or, characters that lend themselves to creating, the streets of Victorian London. So I hope that makes sense. But I do want to say a little bit about my costume before I show you the footage of the fair, and then I will dive full on into my costume and show you up close what it looks like. But I did want to say that this has been probably, the most extravagant thing I've ever made, maybe the hardest thing I've ever made, and it's taken a lot of time, so I haven't really been able to sew anything else lately. But I'm super proud, and I originally was going to make this dress with some emerald green taffeta and then some other plaid for the underskirt, but then when I found out that the taffeta was actually ruined, see, when I bought it, I didn't open it up to inspect it, and then 2 months later when I went to go make the costume, I found that it really wasn't workable. So I had to go to Joann and just get something completely different. Not completely different. It's like polyester matte satin, and it's a little bit different in color. And I got a different plaid, but it all worked out for the best, you know? It's fine. It came out beautifully, and I'm super happy. Yeah, so I went for the 1860s. So I used a bodice from Truly Victorian, the 1860s ball gown bodice. I used McCall's 4744 for my overskirt and underskirt, and then I made a cape with Butterick 5265. So one thing I do want to say about my costume is, you know, I try to be historically accurate with, you know, what I wear. Now, I wasn't historically accurate with the fabric. Polyester was not something that they used in the 1800s, but they would have used a silk, and I wasn't going to spend all that money on 6 yards of silk, so I opted for polyester. And then also, you know, some of the techniques of putting it together, like some of the machine work and how I did the bodice, you know, that's not historically accurate, though there are lots of people on YouTube that recreate historical fashions, and they do it, like, every little detail is how they did it back then. And I think it's super cool, and I'd love to do that, but for this purpose, it's mostly historically accurate. And yeah, is there anything else I wanted to say about it? Yeah, so underneath I wore just a hoop skirt petticoat that I got on Amazon really cheap, and then I had a hairpiece for my ringlets, because who doesn't want bouncy ringlets? Unfortunately, it was raining and it was really cold up there and it was super windy, and so I had my hair back with the fake hair ringlets, and then I had real hair doing ringlets, and I took a lot of care in that, and I like kept spraying them and they were perfect. I go outside into the rain and it's gone. They're just flat. I just had to tuck my hair back. So normally the hairstyles in the that time period, you would have ringlets in the front, ringlets in the back maybe. But anyway, all is good. And I also decided to sit and have somebody draw my portrait. And I'll put that in so you could see it. And it was kind of fun, just something fun to do. And I think it's cute, so I'm going to frame that. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch some footage from the fair, and then we'll dive into a closer look of my costume.
How much? Two! Two! We've got a special.
Could you not have convicted and sent out the country, possibly for life?
Now, my dear, he's terminated, sir.
Mine, of course.
But not mine. It's customary when you make an agreement.
the skirt. And first thing to note is that there is an overskirt, which is the green, and it's got scallops at the bottom, as you can see. And then there is an underskirt, and you have the plaid poking out. And for both skirts, I used this pattern here, McCall's 4744. So for the scallops overskirt, I used just the middle tier. I did lengthen it by 6 inches because I didn't want so much plaid poking out. And let's show you here. So I use that for the overskirt, and then the underskirt is just as you see here. Let me lift that up and show you. So the top part is actually made from an emerald green taffeta, which was originally going to be the main dress. I bought it in September, and I didn't unfold it and look at it when I got it in the mail. And then when I went to cut it out, when I started making the dress, I noticed a bunch of kind of imperfections, which is really sad. But I let Cali Fabrics know, and they were super nice. They refunded me for the fabric, and that's just another reason why I do business with Cali Fabrics, is great customer service. But it works really well for the underskirt, so I was able to do something with it after cutting into it. I felt really bad, but anyway. So as you can see, I've got the ruffled plaid taffeta here. I used my ruffling foot on my Bernina, and it worked really well. And then here, let's focus on these pretty kind of scallops. And one thing I did is I used my serger to do this sort of rolled hem with a kind of satin stitch finish. The only thing I don't like is sometimes the fabric kind of pokes through and you could see it. Now at the bottom here at the hem, you're not going to really see it, so I don't mind so much. I then used my edge stitch foot with some metallic gold thread just to add some detail. I thought it was really nice. My accent color is gold, and then you also have gold here in this taffeta, so it works wonderfully. Here you have the poinsettias, and what this is it's a mix of, those flower stems you get at the craft store. So I pulled them apart, and then I layered them so that you've got different reds, stitched them together, and I used these beads in the center instead of whatever weird plasticky fuzzy thing they had. So these are gold beads. And I do want to note, so let's see if I can show you. Before I put these flowers on, I went and I kind of ruched up the scallops by putting in elastic, pulling it down and stitching it. It looks kind of funky because I actually safety pinned these flowers on. And the reason I did it instead of stitching the flowers on is because I'd like to repurpose this dress for Halloween and maybe put like a cool little skull thing here, and then I can put a different underskirt on to make it more Halloween-y, so I can be like some sort of like dead Civil War ball gown person. I don't know, sounds morbid, but hey. It gives me flexibility, and I don't have to deal with tearing the flowers off, like unpicking them. It's just easier to safety pin them, and you can't see the safety pins, so why not? I had to go to Joann's the day I found the imperfections in the taffeta, and luckily they had 6 yards of this matte satin. It's the Casa collection, and this color is in Junebug, and it's a matte satin, so it's not too shiny, and I think it looks really well, though sometimes on camera it can look more blue than it actually is. So hopefully I'll be able to adjust that when I edit this, and it won't look as blue as it's showing up right now. Okay, I think, well, let's see. I'm gonna say, is that all I want to say about the skirt before we move on to the bodice? So the skirt is finished with, it's hard to do this one here. It's got some hooks and eyes, and then the underskirt is attached with a drawstring, like a drawstring waist. Now this dress form has a smaller waist than me, so I've had to kind of like pin it into place a little bit. So that's why that's overlapped. But I think that's all I want to say about the skirt. So let's go ahead. I guess we'll start with the cape. because it's on and why not? So this is a velvet. Can't remember where I bought it. It's being a pain because it just, no matter what I do, the lint will not come off. And this pattern is a Butterick pattern. It is 5265, so you can see here. I didn't put the tassels on the back, and I didn't put the buttons in the corners here, but I did put some trim on. So let's take a look. So we have this trim. Yes, don't mind the lint. And what I did, machine stitch this before I put the lining in, so you can't see it on the other side. And I stitched it on with the gold metallic thread because I wanted to add a little detail. And then when I thought I was all done with this, I went and I got out some different gold thread, like embroidery thread, because this is metallic and this is just like regular gold embroidery thread from Sulky. And I used one of my decorative stitches and I went all the way around. And I just felt, I was looking at it, I said, you know, this needs something else. And I really love how it turned out. And I'm like hooked on these decorative stitches. I don't normally use them, so I'm like, I need a machine that can do more stitches. So if you have a recommendation, let me know. It's just really lovely. Anyway, turn it back around. I use this clasp here, and then there's another hook and eye at the top to keep my neck warm. Okay. Show you. Okay. So here you have the inside with the faux fur, which is not fun to work with because it gets everywhere. It was in my nose, it's all over my floor, it's going to be in my sewing room forever, and it slips as you sew. Not fun. I do recommend a walking foot when sewing faux fur. It'll make your life so much easier. This I hand stitched down, and then I also hand stitched this into place. Here is that pop of plaid. I thought it was nice to kind of match the underskirt. Yeah. I really love this. I just think it's just awesome. If I do say so myself. Okay. Now we're going to look at this. This is a truly Victorian 1860s ball gown bodice, and kind of falling off of her because she, again, is smaller than me just a bit. I haven't patterned her out yet. Anyway, let's talk about this. This is beautiful. I got it it's just a brooch. I got it at one of the craft stores. It's just truly lovely. So this is the Bertha. This is called the Bertha collar. And it's one piece. You gather it at the top. You gather it at the middle. There's a line that you gather it. And there's a seam in the center front. And it goes all the way to the back. Wraps around, and there you go. So after I gathered the top in the middle, I was able to machine stitch this on, but this one I did by hand. And here you have boning. You have boning right here. You have boning, and these are darts. So you have a dart here with boning, a dart here with boning, and you also have boning here on the side seams. And I just used that covered plastic boning you get at Joann's. Now there's different boning you can get, especially for corsets, but I didn't do that. Anyway, it's kind of, she's not filling it out, so it looks kind of ripply. But I also did the same application I did in the skirt, and that was do the serger rolled hem and do the nice little line of gold. I think that just came out really beautifully. here you have the lovely eyelets, and those were a pain to put on. Mainly it's harder because you have to poke through 3 layers of fabric and get the hole just right, and then you can hammer in your eyelets. And I'm gonna go ahead and take off this lovely bodice, and I just use some satin ribbon, works well. I'm gonna take off this bodice and we're gonna look inside so I can show you what that looks like. But first, I did make this necklace. All it is a piece of velvet ribbon, and I put on this cameo that I happen to already have. And there you go. So let's take off the bodice and look inside. Alrighty, I've got the bodice off, and I wanted to show you that there is this placket here, and this is hand stitched on. Oop, loose thread. That is so that when you're lacing it, if you need to let it out a bit in order to fit you, that you're not showing any skin or any undergarments that you may be wearing. So I wanted to point out that the back of these eyelets are not very attractive, because the types of eyelets that I was able to use and to make work, basically it's because all I had, these are the type that split around the fabric and they don't have that clean edge finish, because those I tried them and they just weren't working for me. So I'm gonna have to find some different eyelets for future bodices, but this is fine and I don't mind it. It's on the inside of the bodice and I have the placket, so it's not going to bother my skin. For the inside, this is lined with one of the really nice Supima cottons from Joann, and the pattern calls for you to actually hand stitch the boning to the front, to the main fabric of the bodice. I didn't want to do that because I'm lazy, and so I machine stitched them to the lining, and so you can see the stitches. I don't really care. You're not going to see it, and I needed a time saver, so that's what I did. And I hate hand stitching. Speaking of hating hand stitching, you turned the bodice from the inside out through the armholes, which means you finish the garment by hand stitching the armholes together. Now these aren't the prettiest, but hey, you know, I did it and it's fine. And then here you actually have a sleeve, and you can't see it so well because this big Bertha collar. But yeah, you have these little sleeves. And I thought about hand stitching some lace around just to kind of add some detail, but the lace I had wasn't long enough, so it really wasn't going to make much of an impact. I didn't think it was worth spending the time hand stitching. So you know, there is a sleeve. And you can make it longer if you want, or you can add more embellishment, but I just didn't do that. Let me see, is there anything else I can think of to show you on this beautiful bodice? You can see. So one thing, oh yes, you can't see inside of it, but when you're making a corset or type bodice or a corset in general, you have a lining fabric, you have an outer fabric, your main fabric, and then you have a middle fabric, and it's usually a coutil. And that is a cotton that is tightly woven so it doesn't stretch out. I did not have coutil on hand, so I went to Joann and I bought 100% cotton drill, which is a very tightly and sort of heavy fabric. I think it might be a little bit heavier than the coutil, I'm not entirely sure. But that meant that you had to baste your main fabric pieces to the coutil. So, and then you would treat them as one, like they were just one piece of fabric, and then you would attach them to the lining. I have to tell you what I did. I didn't hand baste them. No, I spray glued the pieces together. Now that is totally, I don't think that's, hey, it worked for me, but honestly, if you want to be legit, you need to hand baste. But like I said, it worked for me, so I'm not going to complain, and it was a big time saver. So there's no boning in the back. Well, actually, I'm sorry, there are. There's boning right here. There's just no boning on this seam. But there's boning in the center back, and that is so you've got these eyelets, and you need some stability. You don't want this to buckle, so you've got to put boning there. or a stay, they call it sometimes. Yeah, is there anything else I need to tell you about this? I don't think so. Truly Victorian patterns, and that's the pattern I use for this. Again, they are not for beginners. They're more advanced, so I do caution you if you choose to use Truly Victorian. The instructions are not 100% clear, but I was able to figure this out because I've been sewing for a little while and it worked out great. Ultimately, it achieved my goal. Now, I want to show you my little purse. This is a mock-up that I made for myself. I drafted this pattern myself. No big deal. It's a little Christmas purse. And I decided to just keep it and use it because I ran out of time to make these things. So, again, it's got, you know, the green trim with the gold metallic running through. I got crazy and busted out the gold and did some embroidery. It's not exactly consistent all the way around, but I don't care. It adds some detail, and I was just kind of practicing. Oh, hello. And this time I made slightly smaller poinsettias with the smaller beads and put them on because I think it's important. Now, if you look at the dress, you've got red at the bottom, right? You've got the plaid and you've got the flowers. And then this is going to fall in the middle when I'm holding it, right? So you're going to bring the red up to the middle, and then you're going to have the red up here. Well, she's naked. But you have the red up here because of the cape. So you're going to have the red plaid. And then in my hair, I'm also going to have poinsettias. So you want to have, it's nice to have pops of red in sort of a consistent manner so it doesn't look kind of out of place, if that makes sense. So that's why I added the poinsettias. Plus, it's festive. It's Christmas. So this is a drawstring all the way around. So the ribbon is in here in the channel I put in. And so if you pull them, which I can't do one-handed, it will make the purse close. And I lined it using the same green satin, matte satin. I better trim those. And I even put in a pocket. All right. There's a pocket in there, I swear. Can you see it? It's for my credit cards and my ID, because every 1860s woman needs an ID for buying mulled cider. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to give you a walkthrough of my beautiful outfit. Anyway, so let me show you the Truly Victorian pattern. Find it in here. Oops, wrong one. Here you go. This is the pattern I used. I should have showed you at the beginning, but that's fine. I didn't put the bows in, as you can tell, and they have bigger trim, but the great thing about these these collars, you can just have a blast. You can go to town and put anything you want. You can put cats, dogs, whatever you want on it. But yeah, I hope you like this. Thank you very much for watching.